Good evening. This is Maestro with a Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite modcast. Today, we have a match from Division A of the Elite League series. Our first player is going to be shreeH, playing as the Warlock. The Warlock is a Eldar melee hero who can either become a melee tank or a bit more of a spellcaster. And his opponent will be DarkHero, playing as the Chaos Plague Champion. This is a ranged hero to start out, but can become a melee hero later on. He can also repair and heal. So what we have here, as I try to give you as brief a rundown of the Elite League as possible, most of the matches that are ultimately cast by myself as well as Indrid, as exciting as they can be, they are usually just casual matches, meaning they're played outside of a tournament setting, usually just people playing against each other for fun, and sometimes, of course, they result in very good games that make very good casting material. However, this is actually from a community-run tournament series. It is the Elite League. The Elite League is split into two divisions, Division A and Division B, with Division A generally being from the higher skill bracket of players in the community. And there are two phases to the tournament, or stages. Stage 1 is a round-robin phase, or round-robin group stage. And what that means is that every player in each division plays every other player. So it's a lot of matches, and it takes place over the course of a few weeks. It's good practice because it means even if you're not the best player, you still get plenty of practice tournament matches in. And eventually, after the round-robin stage is over, it will lead into a single-elimination playoff bracket at the end. I believe, at least for Division A, only the top 8 players, right now there are currently 16 players in Division A, make it into that playoff bracket. And the playoff bracket should be single elimination, which means if you do lose once, you are eliminated. Matches are best of 3, and as I think that's just about what I have to explain kind of how the whole Elite League works, let's actually focus on the game itself here between shreeH and DarkHero. shreeH, also known as Shroom within the community. And these are two players who... shreeH is someone who I wasn't really familiar with until returning to the community. DarkHero is someone who I've heard of. And he's also someone who is extremely popular for whatever reason. He appears to be like the most popular man in Elite Mod Entertainment today. And we're seeing that DarkHero is starting off with a little bit of an advantage. He does have the double cap. His grenade launcher heretics are going to be tied up by the Warlock, but they were able to throw in their grenade barrage to disrupt the Warlock. Sorry, the Howling Banshees. And that will actually be almost a full retreat from DarkHero, only keeping his Plague Champion on the field. And very interestingly, we are seeing DarkHero go for a third Heretic squad. I do say it as very interestingly, since in team games you would almost never see this. In 1v1, it's actually not that crazy. However, it does still strike me a little bit as odd for the Plague Champion. Out of all the Chaos heroes, I would expect it least from the Plague Champion. But what the triple Heretic build gives you, it does give you just a lot of field presence, since Heretics are very, very cheap to field. You have a lot of map control, and with all these redundant units, you can also very easily split off a unit for capping purposes. Powerful Destructor going in there on the Heretics. Definitely one of the advantages that the Warlock does have against Chaos. And wow, what a nice Mucus Discharge! That squad of Heretics, if we didn't have that Mucus Discharge from the Plague Champion, that was a squad of Heretics that wouldn't have much more ability to stay out on the field much longer. So he's drawing the suppression with one squad of Heretics, gets a grenade barrage to knock over the Guardian Weapon team, and that would have allowed the third Heretic squad to actually move in to get into melee with the Guardian Weapon team. However, it is just going to be a retreat called by shreeH. shreeH currently keeping his Howling Banshees out on the field, but they were taking some range damage. Heretics, I was going to say it looks like they would eventually catch up, but instead he's choosing to prioritize bashing the node on that contested power node. And I was going to say, I thought it would start to be a double cap back in favor of DarkHero. Yeah. Alright, he finally does move him over. He's going to harass this squad of Dire Avengers with the Plague Champion. This will be an extremely hard winning matchup for the Plague Champion any day of the week. and we are just going to see retreats before any kills come in. I thought we would see some force melee. It's still possible we might see a kill in retreat, since the damage over time bolter is decent for killing on retreat, as we see it kind of ticking health down, but eventually it does stop. And at some point we had seen shreeH go for what looked like a rather long tier 1 build, since at some point he had queued up a 5th squad, but he did cancel it and decide to go to tier 3. Whereas DarkHero, on the other hand, actually going for a rather large tier 1, choosing to get Noise Marines out on the field as his 5th squad. And one of the reasons he can do this is that most of his units are heretics, so those are cheaper units. Would be very different if you had like multiple Chaos Space Marines out on the field. That would delay your tier 2 far, far too much. As it is, DarkHero, even with a relatively cheap army, is going to be obviously behind shreeH in tech, since shreeH is actually just got to tier 2, and DarkHero is still actually not even queuing up tier 2. He doesn't have the resources to go there for quite a while. He actually has the worst end of power income. So this could be a little bit rough for DarkHero, and if anything, I'm not entirely sure I like the Warp Spider purchase out of shreeH. He is ahead in tech, and if he does eventually see the Noise Marine squad, I feel like he should know that she's ahead in tech. And although the Warp Spider squad will definitely rip apart all those heretics, they're not going to win that significantly over the Chaos Space Marines. The Plague Champion even does kind of decently against the Warp Spiders, especially with Mucus Discharge, and especially if he can also use that on his Chaos Space Marines as well. And the Noise Marines even have the power to shut down the Warp Spiders. I would have liked to see a vehicle coming out, since, again, DarkHero not getting to tier 2 anytime soon. DarkHero also went for a build that, if shreeH had gotten a vehicle, DarkHero really would not be in an easy position to respond to it, because all 5 of his... Actually, no, I'm wrong. Technically, 4 out of his 5 tier 1 squads have very limited to no ability to deal with vehicles. The heretics can't do anything to vehicles. The Chaos Space Marines can at best lightly deal with a vehicle with either one of their marks. The Noise Marines technically can do decent damage to vehicles, but not too reliably. So, but generator bashes are going on both sides, and in fact, each player actually has the opposing player's generator farm or generator power node. Although shreeH will be taking his natural power node back. Warlock will be focused down here. I'm actually surprised he's getting focused down and losing as much health as he is right now. That probably means we don't have any armor upgrades from the Warlock yet. No armor upgrades, so he's not that tanky in his vanilla form with no armor upgrades. If you really do want the Warlock to be tanky, usually that does mean you need to go into the Champion's Robe. Instead, we are going to see the Warlock pick up the Witchblade of Kurnos, which, on the one hand, I do feel that is a little bit strange, because he doesn't really have... I mean, I guess he does have some melee heretics that he could deal with. It's actually only 1 squad of melee heretics at the moment. So very heavy emphasis on the grenade launchers from DarkHero, and I do find that very interesting if you really think about what the grenade launcher heretics do give you. They can... It's basically quite a bit of disruption, since he doesn't have a squad of Raptors, he doesn't even have a Havoc, and typically one of the disadvantages of the Plague Champion in 1v1 games is that he's generally quite a bit more linear than the other Chaos heroes, so he does not have as easy of a way of breaking well-entrenched suppression teams. So I think his solution to that is this double grenade launcher heretic build. That Witchblade of Kurnos, though, it strikes me as strange, because I don't feel there are too many opportunities where he'll have to use that defensively, which is often one of the big reasons for it. However, it also does have use as kind of the nuking ability for trying to, like, just nuke a squad, especially if he can catch a squad of heretics on retreat, especially one of the ones that does not have an aspiring champion. He can actually reasonably threaten to wipe the entire heretic squad. The aspiring champion heretics, it will be a little bit harder to do that, but they still kind of have to respect it. They would probably lose most of the heretic models. Heretics are going in, and they're actually pulling out before the ethereal slash comes in. So that was actually pretty well played because, I mean, they're definitely less experienced players who don't know what to expect and don't quite understand the threat that ethereal slash has. Might have just kept their heretics in there. This could be, I think it's a little too late for ethereal slash on retreat. If he can find this squad of heretics in retreat, he's coming in from the back, but they still have Touch of Nurgle active, but it should expire soon. They will get suppressed. Touch of Nurgle has still not expired. There will be the ethereal slash, and we see just how powerful it is. In the end result, that might actually be the wipe on the squad. Oh, it looks like he can't. Can he get? He will get it. Oh, what a nice sync kill. I love with that reverse sword slash going through from behind. Beautiful. So he does actually manage to wipe that heretic squad, and that did definitely happen off of the strength of the ethereal slash. And man, does Touch of Nurgle last a long time, a lot longer than I would think. Now, one of the things, I did say the Noise Marines do have the ability to shut down the Warp Spiders, but it sometimes can be tricky, and perhaps well microed, the Warp Spiders can play around the Noise Marines. Since the Noise Marines do have shorter than standard range, if the Warp Spiders try to stay at maximum range and take advantage of their teleport to reposition, they may be able to stay out of the Noise Marine range most of the time. And I'm actually really surprised to see this Blood Crusher purchase out of DarkHero here. Typically, I think of the Blood Crusher as something that you want to use. Wow, this might be another wipe on the heretics. No, somehow they're not able to finish it off. I feel like they were in range, but something just happened, and now they're actually being threatened and have to worry about dying themselves. I think that was the Exarch taken out. Am I correct on that? Yeah, I think there was an Exarch, and I think he was taken out on the Warp Spider squad. So typically, I think of the Blood Crusher as a unit that, I mean, it definitely does best when it is purchased when you have a tech advantage and when you are in the lead in tech. Oh, man. This could be the end of this Dire Avenger squad, and indeed it will be. Kept them in there just a little too long, ate too many grenades. Since the Blood Crusher is melee, it is, for a vehicle, it's, especially for a melee vehicle, it is a little on the squishy side. In fact, out of all the melee vehicles, it's definitely just one of the squishiest melee vehicles in this game. Warp Throw used to take the Chaos Space Marines off the point. And that Blood Crusher, when you get to a point when your opponent has a little more trouble or a little bit an easier time countering it, sometimes it can be hard to really get value out of it. Anyway, here are going to be some Chosen Plague Marines coming out of DarkHero, an exclusive to the Plague Champion unit. And they are a call-in unit requiring red. And yeah, you really don't see this often. It's one of those things that I mean, to be honest, I definitely forgot that they even existed. I forgot that they existed. This is a new portrait for them since the last time I have even seen them. So DarkHero, as we can see, still very popular. And we do see that the Noise Marines have upgraded with a Blastmaster. That is something from long range that could also especially disrupt the Guardian Weapon team. I mean, like one shot from the Blastmaster could be enough to scare off the Guardian Weapon team, and then there is not a sufficient answer to the Blood Crusher. Yeah, I mean, just So much pressure actually on that Guardian weapon team, even without the Blastmaster shooting it, that it was scared off. Meanwhile, on this side, Warp Spiders are going to be bashing this power farm. So at this point, I think shreeH kind of realizes that he can't really actually fight DarkHero head-to-head with his current army, so he is just kind of playing around the map and seeing where he can get value elsewhere. In this case, using those Warp Spiders, their mobility, their high damage to take care of that generator farm, get some red, and disrupt DarkHero's power income. Those Warp Spiders going to have to retreat, though. They're getting pincered. Ideally, they would have wanted to teleport out first, but I don't think it made... Well, they did lose actually only one model in the end, so that's not too bad. And these Chosen Plague Marines, I don't think it's something that the Howling Banshees really want to deal with. Meanwhile, on this side, Dire Avengers will be in cover, but it does look like Chaos Space Marines will be attempting to melee them. Grenade approach gets the railing, and it is also a clean miss, as well as it was anticipated by DarkHero. shreeH backpedaling to the cover, but at some point the Chaos Space Marines will just manage to get into melee with an Aspiring Champion and no mark. I mean, actually, any configuration of Chaos Space Marines would handily beat Dire Avengers in melee, but having the Aspiring Champion does help them quite a bit as well, since he does have that chain sword.
We are losing a power node to the enemy. Deploying shuriken cannon.
So it's a significant victory point lead for shreeH. However, we do have a double cap for DarkHero, and it does feel like the momentum of the game is shifting in his favor. He's had the double cap. He's kind of been controlling it for a while. shreeH has had to play around DarkHero rather than actually deal with him directly. shreeH now, however, has a Wraith Lord. Now, this Wraith Lord does need to be a little bit careful, as we do see the Blastmaster Noise Marine does do damage to it. And the Blood Crusher, this is actually not going well for shreeH at the moment. The Blood Crusher, although it has a lot less health than the Wraith Lord, the damage it does is comparable. It had worship support. Heretics have unworshipped because they would be targeted. I think this is actually a very quick end to the Wraith Lord, and indeed it is. And the final shot of all things came from a las cannon turret. Another one of those things that I often forget exists. DarkHero proving to be the hero that Dawn of War 2 Retribution needs. Yeah, I'm actually very surprised to see that coming out of shreeH. Unfortunately, the Wraith Lord was kind of thrown away there, was kind of left unsupported as well. I'm not entirely sure what the plan was. I think he was maybe just counting on it being a vehicle to maybe just be able to walk up to the Blastmaster Noise Marine and rip them apart, but he had the Blood Crusher to deal with, and the Blood Crusher, again, although the Blood Crusher has much less health than the Wraith Lord, it actually does comparable damage. It was supported by Heretic Worship. It only had the Wraith Lord to contend with, whereas the Wraith Lord had to deal with both the Blood Crusher and the Noise Marines. Meanwhile, Noxious Cloud is on the ground, scaring off the Guardian weapon team. And those will be, oh my god, that is the, oh my god, what a play! Oh man. And that is a global ability from the Plague Champion that, if I'm really honest, I actually can't even remember the name of, but I think basically making it so, it might be something like Curse of Nurgle or like Curse of Undeath, where when enemy units die, they are actually turned into zombies. Ethereal Slash Warp Throw with Ethereal Slash, killing all but one of the Heretic models, as well as leaving the Aspiring Champion up. This is rough. The Chosen Plague Marines are also really low, though. I mean, there's a healing effect when the model dies, but that was still pretty close, I gotta say. And I think the Warlock goes down as well, and indeed he does. So this is not looking good for shreeH. He does still have a lot of... He does, of course, still have a lot of victory points that he can play with. And actually, he still does have a generator farm up. He's starting to win this fight. It's still a ranged Plague Champion, though. Ranged Plague Champion does have the armor of Pestilence, giving him a... oh my god, wow. He actually used the Aura of Decay ability, walked up to that, walked up to the Warp Spiders, and actually instantly killed 2 models with that Aura of Decay. I had forgotten that Aura of Decay ability even exists. Even though I've seen this Armor War Gear purchased a lot, even though I've seen this Armor War Gear, I don't think I've actually seen that ability that much lately. Again, that Mucus Discharge being used to just sustain those Chaos Space Marines. Let the Generator Bash happen. Warp Spiders are coming back out with only 3 models. They're not even in cover. Alright, this is rough. He's going to Tier 3. Desperate play. There have definitely been times in several other casts where I've talked about going to Tier 3 when you already have less of an army than your opponent.
One of our generators is under attack.
But I mean, what he might be looking for, we did see in the chat some people recommended, some of those observers did recommend a Fire Prism. And a Fire Prism at the moment would actually do a good job of countering what DarkHero has. He does not have anything that could really adequately deal with a Fire Prism. Ethereal Slash does go in, only getting 1 model on those Noise Marines. Bloodletter is going to rip apart that Webway Gate. So yeah, the Fire Prism would do well. The Fire Prism... Fire Prisms, first of all, they counter pretty much just about... They counter the majority of infantry squads in the game, since the Fire Prism will just knock them back as they attempt to approach. So that does mean the only squads that it arguably doesn't counter would be things like Terminators, but even Terminators need to be able to respect the extreme range of the Fire Prism, as well as the damage that it can do to them. Ooh, Warp Spiders, yeah. Alright. Warp Spiders should not really have to fear getting into melee with the Chosen Plague Marines if they are played correctly. Fire Prism is also something that would at least be able to safely damage the Blood Crusher. However, I think without a... Well, shreeH does have a snare from the Warp Spiders, so he would be able to haywire the Blood Crusher, and then damage could come in from the Fire Prism, and that is something that could threaten the Blood Crusher, but it might not be enough if DarkHero plays it out well, provides the repairs that it needs, pressures and zones in a way that will threaten the Warp Spiders as well as the Fire Prism. Warlock consistently going on solo missions, trying to get some value out of that Witchblade of Kurnos. Now, as much as I do personally certainly respect the threat of the Ethereal Slash, one of the weaknesses I do have to say is that if we see, it says it does 25 melee damage and knockback along 4 lines in an area. So if you actually think about it, 25 melee damage is really not a huge number. So we're seeing that it's not that effective for damage against things like the Chosen Plague Marines. It's good for just disrupting them if it's needed, but the damage it does is not huge. So it's really a lot better against those squishier squads like the Heretics. Alright, at this point, the game is now really going back into favor of DarkHero. And the squad that shreeH is choosing to get are Seer Council. And that, if anything, does strike me as strange. Since the Seer Council, I mean, they're not a particularly strong counter to the Blood Crusher. They would do some light damage. And then the... How well they do against the Bloodletters, I'm not too sure. It's probably a slightly winning matchup in favor of the Seer Council, but the Bloodletters still have a lot of answers to it. If it looks like the fight is not really going in their direction, they can always just phase out of the warp and then walk back to some Heretic Worship for heals. And a late Havoc, a late Tier 2 Havoc out of DarkHero, and right now he's just going with the suppression on that, and if anything, that's that strange pick where we are going to see the Cloak of Shadows used to get the Seer Council in. They will get into melee, and they will certainly rip apart the Havoc. Warlock, I think, here needs to, I was going to say, Witchblade of Ethereal Slash and then retreat. And then this match, I'm not sure how this one goes either, but there again, we do see that global from the Warlock. Rather, from the Plague Champion.
We are losing a requisition point to the enemy.
But DarkHero is really starting to exert control at this point. shreeH is doing whatever he can to try to come back into this game. This is actually not good for the Noise Marines. I wonder if he's content to let the Noise Marines go. Because I think if he has a teleport, yeah, he might be able to kill them. They've got a lot of health, but Force Melee on the retreat will be enough. So Noise Marines are gone. And DarkHero is actually going to Tier 3. He's going to Tier 3 without too many resources banked, but he does have a nice 395 red, so it won't be too long before he might be able to get a Imperial Abyss if he does want to use that. An Imperial Abyss could give him an engagement win that would allow him to finish off the game. Las Cannon Turret is actually still alive. That is going to be Warp Throw, pulling in the Chaos Space Marines, who will now be ripped apart by the Seer Council. Chaos Space Marines do activate Slaughter, and they get Touch of Nurgle. That global, I do know what it's called. Warlock is in trouble, and he could actually go down here, but the Chaos Space Marines will be knocked over. But man, Touch of Nurgle is actually doing quite a bit of work on the Seer Council. They actually haven't lost a model yet, so I could be lying through my teeth right now, whatever that expression means. At some point, they gotta lose a model, and I don't see them winning against the Chosen Plague Marines with the relatively low amount of health that they have. They still have not lost a model. If they can wipe the Chaos Space Marines, that would be a decent win. And they do wipe the Chaos Space Marines. Distortion Field is used, and now it's just a retreat. Wow. That was actually... Honestly, even with... Okay, 2 models lost does make things a little bit tougher. But if he had gotten them out of there even with 4 models, I would have said that was great play with the Seer Council. Finishing off the Chaos Space Marines, using the Distortion Field to cover their retreat. And all things considered, shreeH has actually done a decent job trying to come back into this game. I don't know if it'll be enough, though. Actually, it might not be. I might have called that a little too late. He was able to get actually get some kills that resulted in these two players having now equal army sizes. But it's also going to be a double cap in favor of DarkHero with very, very little time for shreeH to actually switch things around. And I'm not sure what unit he can have to capture the point. Warlock isn't that tanky at the moment. He does get scared off by the fear effect from the Blood Crusher. And I think just with the units that are putting pressure on him right now, I don't think he'll be able... Yeah, there's just too much damage, too many units here. Last-ditch effort's going to come in from the Seer Council. Blood Crusher will actually be taken out.
It shall be done.
Distortion Field does go on the Seer Council to try to keep them in there, and... Oh, I was going to say, I thought the Warlock would get out of there alive with the special attack from the Seer Council. Seer Council now choosing to target the Heretics, but the thing is, at some point, yeah, we're going to see the Chosen Plague Marines start to capture this point again. shreeH's going to have to hope for another special attack. He actually does get it, but actually, I think DarkHero also got off here. Autarch comes in, gives the Seer Council just a little bit of healing. This is, at this point in the game, what I would actually like to see is a War Gear switch from shreeH to get the... And yes, he's doing it, getting the channeling runes. That's exactly what I called, because I feel most of the value that shreeH is getting is coming out of these Seer Council. And he's getting massive value out of the Seer Council, even when they seem to have no health left. So the channeling runes will actually allow him to heal up. And finally, he's going to be healing up the Seer Council. It's a little bit slow, but he's actually winning against the Chosen Plague Marines. And what looked like a really uneven game halfway through, we're actually seeing an incredible job by shreeH to try to come back into this game. And I think it really does all depend on supporting his Seer Council at the moment. They need some more heals. The Autarch choosing to tie things up. I would have liked to see her use the jump actually to just heal the Seer Council. It sounds ridiculous. Here is an Imperial Abyss. Oh no, the Seer Council are right there. Seer Council are not going into it. Instead, it's actually Bloodletters who are going into it. Warlock is pulled through. The Imperial Abyss is not actually getting that much value. Okay, but finally we do see the response out of DarkHero, and this could be the thing that finally slows down the Seer Council and eventually he delivers the game into DarkHero's hands. He's gotten the Plague Fist, which stuns infantry for 4 seconds. Very powerful as a melee counter, especially combined with that Aura of Decay. And at this moment, we're seeing the Autarch going for that desperation play to get a decap on DarkHero's natural to try to stay in this game. It is a 1-to-1 cap. The Autarch might sacrifice her life here, and she retreats. That buys him a little bit more time, but I don't think it's enough. It's a 1-to-0. Top VP will eventually be taken back. Can they get a... All right, the Seer Council, they're going to have to start a decap immediately. Someone does. Oh, no, and they get stunned. Decap is started by the Warlock instead. I think he can cast Ethereal Slash without stopping his cap, and indeed he can. Unfortunately, he's not able to use Channeling Runes, so much finally he's able to use Channeling Runes, but so much health is being lost on the Seer Council. They've done so much work in this late game, but I don't know if it will be enough. But the way shreeH is holding on at the end of this game is amazing and inspiring. He is a valiant effort, but I think that unfortunately will be the end of his Seer Council, and it will also be the end of this game. All right, so that will be DarkHero. That will be DarkHero winning in the end. But what a game shreeH made it for about the last 5 minutes, when halfway through the game it looked like he was done. Now, this is a best-of-3 series, so the series does not end until one player wins 2 games. DarkHero is now up 1 game, so shreeH still has a chance to finish off this series in his favor if he can bring it back in Game 2 and eventually force a Game 3. As of right now, though, let's just move on to Game 2. All right, we're down to Game 2 in our best-of-3 series from the Elite League Division A between shreeH and DarkHero. shreeH is now going to be playing as the Chaos Lord. Chaos Lord going to be a tanky melee hero who walks through cover and cannot be suppressed. His opponent, DarkHero, this time going to be playing the Force Commander. Force Commander, also a tanky melee hero. However, he can be knocked down and suppressed. He can buff with Battlecry and disrupt with Battlecry. So, same players, new heroes. I do believe it actually is a rule in the Elite League that players actually do have to play a different hero each game. And they... one thing that I had forgotten in my brief rundown of the Elite League is that each player signs up and they give themselves a pool of 5 heroes. So it's basically the 5 heroes that they are allowed to select for each series. So, in Game 2, this Game 2 going to be taking place on Jarillo's Forge. Interesting build out of DarkHero at the moment, going for Triple Scout. Now, Triple Scout obviously does not give you a whole lot of damage, since a single Scout squad only does about as much damage as half of a Tactical Marine squad. It's going to be giving him more in terms of map control, since Scouts do passively move faster than other units, and probably also just a lot of focus on the Force Commander tying up the lone Chaos Space Marine squad from shreeH to prevent it from doing its range damage, since the Chaos Space Marines they definitely win handily against a single squad of Scouts. Scouts looking to take those garrisons a lot as well, but the Scouts can, from a distance, even with their relatively low DPS, bleed the Heretics just fine, especially if it is more than one Heretic squad that will be doing that, or rather one Scout squad that will be doing that. It's going to be a squad of Noise Marines out from shreeH. Now, the Noise Marines, they do make some sense on this map, because this is a map where it's not a particularly long run over to your opponent's generator farm. Noise Marines, pretty much just like any Flamer unit, will bash generators very, very quickly. And shreeH is starting to scare off these scouts. The scouts are also going to be very, very good at kiting the Chaos Lord. Since, again, with their passive, they do passively move faster, whereas by comparison, the Chaos Lord passively moves just a little bit slower. Oh my god! What a grenade on retreat, immediately wiping one of shreeH's heretic squads. The plays. We actually have double shotgun scouts as well, so I talked about scouts not doing that much damage, but when they have shotguns, it's actually quite a bit of a different story. When they have shotguns, their damage is just fine. Of course they do need to get a little bit closer, but getting close to the Chaos Lord isn't such a big deal. Whether you're at maximum range or really close to him, as long as you can kite him. Oh, they were looking for a grenade in retreat, nearly killing the Chaos Lord. It might be a kill on the Chaos Lord. What a play, grenade, and then also just the finishing swipe from that Force Commander. So strong start from DarkHero at the moment, using that high-level micro, one of my new memes that I'm trying to get to catch on. DarkHero now does have a significant victory point lead. It's actually been a rough start from shreeH, already losing his Chaos Lord, also losing that squad of heretics. He's choosing to get the Combi Flamer and the Harness of Rage. Now, both of these upgrades actually do make a ton of sense to me. Because... Actually, the Harness of Rage by itself actually does not quite make that much sense yet, but the Combi Flamer makes a lot of sense. It does make the Chaos Lord... He's able to punish the scouts for trying to kite them a little bit better, since it effectively doubles his damage, basically doubles his range damage that he puts out. Combi Flamer, considering the Chaos Lord is supposed to be a tanky melee hero, the Combi Flamer has been rather unique in that it basically turns your Chaos Lord into a ranged hero. And I don't know if it's been changed, but I believe, at least classically, that Combi Flamer is supposed to have 100% fire on the move accuracy, which means it's actually, again, very good for punishing kiting from your opponent. Grenade will go in. Looks like no models are going to be taken from the Noise Marines. Meanwhile, we see no Tactical Marines out of DarkHero. He went from the Triple Scouts into the Devastator Marines, it's very interesting. I do think it's probably more of a 1v1 thing. You would definitely not see this as much from most... You would definitely not see this as much from most players in Tier 3, especially more mid or low-level players. But honestly, even high-level players, too, are probably just going to straight up go for Tactical Marines in a team game. But in 1v1, this is something that is a little bit more viable. And it's just a lot of the utility and the mobility of the scouts that is making this work. And we're also seeing the heavy punishment potential that those scouts with their grenades have. Something that he would... Although Tactical Marines are good for their own purposes, Tactical Marines actually do not have that kind of punishment potential or that utility. They are meant to be more of a DPS unit. Infiltrated scouts throwing a grenade in on the Noise Marines using Cacophony. Noise Marines tank the grenade and don't lose a single model, but they are so low on hit points that they will have to go soon. Grenade is attempt to be thrown, then fake, then actually thrown. This one, it was like an attempted prediction by... That was an attempted prediction by DarkHero, either catching the Noise Marines moving back or even retreating because they were so low. Sometimes a retreat, pressing the retreat button, is a way people attempt to dodge grenades, and in that case, it of course would have resulted, if shreeH had actually taken the bait, he would have lost at least one model, if not two. I don't think losing the squad there was going to be a possibility with 3 models and then being spread out enough. So we are going to see Raptors coming out from shreeH. Now, with all the losses, you would think he would be behind, but all things considered, it doesn't look like he's doing too bad. He's able to get a few generator bashes. He's not quite... Oh, actually, he does... All right, he does anticipate the scouts or detect them in some way. Oh, no. But he's got these... The Noise Marines don't have a choice. They have to retreat. They need to retreat like now. And they might still die anyway. It's going to be so close. If the Force Commander can get one more swing, the bolt pistol might be enough. One more shot should do it. And he does do it. Oh my god, that is crazy. And how did the Chaos Lord go down for the Emperor? Used on the Devastator Marines, and we are going to see Shroom go down there. Shroom's Chaos Lord go down. This is looking rough. This might be the end of our series. I mean, we did see the way shreeH held on so much in that last game. So it's definitely not looking good for shreeH at the moment. He's actually almost evened out the VPs. And all things considered, I think he should actually just be looking to try to go to Tier 2 soon. Maybe focus on holding the rest of his power. If anything, I'm surprised he didn't buy another generator a little bit sooner. I don't feel that his generators have been particularly threatened for much of this game, and instead he's choosing to replace the Noise Marines. So this does mean he's going to be pretty significantly behind DarkHero in tech, choosing to get those Noise Marines instead of upgrading to Tier 3. Of course, I can see a lot of things that he doesn't, seeing that DarkHero actually lost a Scout Squad. I missed that somewhere, in fact, and that DarkHero upgraded to Tier 2. And DarkHero wasn't really that far ahead of shreeH. But I think getting the Noise Marines will put him a lot farther behind. Now, I do think it's in the Chaos Lord's best interest, yeah, to focus on these scouts rather than the Force Commander. Force Commander now upgrading to the Power Fist, then switching to the Thunderhammer. And again, we see the problem that shreeH is behind in tech, but so far we don't have anything out from DarkHero to really punish them. So I think probably the ideal play from DarkHero would be to get a Razorback very soon. I think a Razorback... Oh my god, this hurts so much, though. No Aspiring Champion on these Heretics. Finally, they're upgrading to actually be able to detect these Shotgun Scouts. I think a Razorback from DarkHero would actually just straight up finish the game. Instead, we're going to see a call-in of a drop pod with some Tactical Marines, I think. Yep, drop pod with Tactical Marines. Interesting. I mean, finally, he actually does get Tactical Marines, brings them in through a drop pod. To me, that actually seems really, really strange to finally get Tactical Marines now. It's something that shreeH is actually completely capable of fighting against, as well as the fact that it doesn't really capitalize on the fact that DarkHero is in Tier 2, and shreeH hasn't even started teching to Tier 2. And if anything, I do see this as almost giving shreeH an opportunity to come back into this game, since shreeH is actually getting a nice generator bash now. Oh no, I think he left Noise Marines on Overwatch or something, because he's now getting another one, which does not strike me. I hope he's going to see that and cancel it, because if it's a... Like, I do hate to actually roast our players here, because shreeH is absolutely someone who is far, far better than me. Good. He does recognize it, because I was going to say that Noise Marines at that point would have just been straight up the wrong choice. There's pretty much no argument for a second squad of Noise Marines. A second squad of Noise Marines when you need to be teching to Tier 2. And even if he doesn't know exactly where DarkHero is in tech, he should just know from his own internal game sense that he's just at a point where he needs to be going to Tier 2. But again, DarkHero doesn't actually have that many resources. And again, ideally what I want to see from him is a Razorback, because I think a Razorback, if he had actually gotten the Razorback instead of the Tactical Marines, I think that would have straight up just won the game for him. As it is, Raptors might be in trouble. All right, I think that one model will get out of there. Now, DarkHero might eventually go for a Dreadnought at this point, for all I know. A Razorback could actually still win the game at this point. Since the Razorback, it's shreeH is not in a good position to counter a Razorback. His entire Tier 1 army would not be well equipped for that. He doesn't have a Havoc. And DarkHero instead is going to Tier 3. Oh my god. Now, normally I don't like to point out whenever we see some colorful language from our players in the game, but I do wonder at this point if and when DarkHero makes it to Tier 3 and throws down some... He's not actually that close to Terminators, he doesn't have the red, but if he does get to Tier 3 and like a Predator rolls out or something, what further colorful language we might see out of shreeH. Unfortunately, the Raptors are being hit rather hard by the Thunderhammer Force Commander. Classically, just one of the... I would actually be tempted to say classically one of the most powerful melee counters in the entire game, because you get those area of effects special attacks. Chaos Lord now in a huge amount of trouble. Going in way too hard, trying to tie up the Devastator Marines. I don't see a way that the Chaos Lord makes it out of this alive, and indeed he does not. And you know, before DarkHero is able to actually get out any Tier 3 units, it might actually just be DarkHero winning the game here. Oh god. Yeah, that's going to have to be it. So it looks like this series between these two players, although we see the decap, it is now actually the concede, and it will be a 2-0 victory in favor of DarkHero. So it won't go to a third game. Do hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much myself, so I'm looking forward to casting a few more of these Elite League games. And please, have a good night.